Hi everyone, I'm delighted today to be joined by Marie Quigley, who is a psychologist. Hi and welcome Marie, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi Laura, it's great to chat.
It is always lovely to chat to you, Marie. Just in our chat beforehand, you mentioned that there are some golden nuggets for looking after your mental health. Could you tell us what they are, please?
Yeah, well, I guess, Laura, that these would be things that are familiar to most people because we hear so much about them. So they would be the basics of self-care in terms of trying to get some gentle exercise very regularly, and the regularity of it is the key thing. Try to look after your sleep as well as you can. Try to manage your stress as well as you can. Now that in itself is a whole big area of work.
Yeah.
And another would be to try to maintain social connection with people who add to your well-being, as opposed to those who make demands of you.
Okay. And they are all very, I would have heard of those things. I suppose before you go any further, if I could ask, I know those things, I've heard those things, but when you actually need those things, it's very hard to do those things. So have you any, I suppose, tips or advice? Because you're kind of getting to a cycle really, don't you? How do you get out of that cycle? How do you make yourself go to sleep?
Well, I have the answer to that now. So what you're talking about there is really just an element of the human condition for the vast majority of us, probably with the exception of people who are really, really disciplined around their self-care. So we are really, really prone to getting into slumps and staying in slumps and doing that negative spiral thing. So the first step, the absolutely critical step, is to recognize that I'm in a spiral when I'm in a spiral, to recognize, okay, something is not right here and it's not getting better. So I can either keep going the way I'm going, which will lead to the same outcome, or I can do something, one little thing, a little bit different, and see if I can shake something up and help myself to feel a bit better. Okay, so the vast majority of us, the absolute vast majority of us, actually have the experience of getting ourselves out of a slump before. Okay, and I can say that confidently because we're all still here. Like no one who's listening to this has ever encountered a problem that totally got the better of them. Okay, everyone who's here has inevitably had huge challenges and also gotten through them. So what I would say is look to what you know, look to what are positive and safe coping strategies, because we all have coping strategies that are not necessarily so good for us, and some of them are unsafe for us. To stay away from those ones. But what are the positive and safe coping strategies that I have used before that I know have helped me really well? Okay, and that's the place to start. Another really, really useful thing to do is, on a day when you're feeling good, write a memo, a short memo to yourself, either 5 bullet points on a physical page, and I have to say I have a bias towards pen and paper for this, or else write yourself an email with 5 bullet points, and maybe put a subject title on it, like, put a subject line on the email saying something like emergency perspective, or emergency coping list, or something like that will stand out when you search for it. The same thing on the outside of the paper or on the envelopes. Write something kind of catchy like that, and on that list or in that email, write yourself a really short memo of maximum 5 things that help you when you're feeling good. Because the difficulty is, when we're not feeling good, actual changes in our brain chemistry prevent us from accessing information that we may very, very clearly know and be very clearly able to access at other points in time. So we'll all have experienced the dynamic of, when we're very stressed or feeling very down, our thinking becomes a little bit foggy. And that's exactly what this is. It is the impact of the change in our brain chemistry when we become really stressed that is, and maybe not even really stressed, maybe even moderately stressed, those changes in our brain chemistry impede our ability to access information. So really good coping strategies that we could be fully aware of and fully on board with and in a brilliant routine around at one point in time might just be a tiny bit beyond our reach at another time when we're feeling down or stressed or a little bit derailed. And that, unfortunately, is the time when we need them most. So to externalize them outside of your brain, either in a paper list or in an email, is a really good way of being able to access that information when your thinking might be a little bit cloudy.
That's great. Actually, it's a great idea. You mentioned about recognizing it as the first step. Is it difficult for people to recognize it when they're in the cycle? And is there any way to, have you any, I suppose, mechanisms to help you recognize that you are in a cycle?
Yeah. And that kind of depends on the person. There can be as many answers to that as there are people grappling with this difficulty. Something to watch out for is when we are not functioning well. So in the student context, for example, right, when things are not going well academically, we have, and again, this is the human condition, we tend to be really self-critical. So we are really, really good at jumping pretty quickly down the rabbit hole of, I'm no good at this, I'm not able for this course is too much for me, I can't juggle this course along with whatever my other commitments are. There is something wrong with me fundamentally. So we're very good and quick at jumping down that rabbit hole, but without actually taking a breath for a second and going, okay, hang on, something has changed here. Like I was doing okay at this 3 weeks ago, and now I'm not. That doesn't make sense. You know, my ability to cope with this course has not changed in 3 weeks. So what actually are the other factors? So the best way to recognize that we're in a slump, or certainly one of the good ways to recognize it, is to try not to go down that really self-critical rabbit hole and turn it into I'm not good enough. Because if I go to a place of I'm not good enough to do the course, to finish the assignment, well then I'm probably also going to feel, oh, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to take the break that I feel I need, and you know, take the hour off study or essay writing to go for the walk, or meet my friend for coffee, or have a lie-in tomorrow, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So not only does that really self-critical thinking keep us stuck in the rabbit hole, it also prevents us sometimes from engaging in the self-care activities that might really help us to come back on an even keel again.
And that's just brought to mind from what you said there about making, you know, the memo. I know a while back I came across this idea that you write something even on a little post-it and stick it somewhere that you see it every day. So it could be beside your bedside locker, or it could be on a mirror somewhere that you are brushing your teeth in the morning. And you won't see it most of the time because you don't need it, but on the days that you need it, you'll see it. And it can be whatever you need on that. It could be 3 words or 1 word or whatever, to remind you that, you know, like for example, you know, what are the facts about the situation? Because often I think when you go into that mindset, you're not actually dealing in facts really, are you?
It's all the self-critical beliefs that come out then. Yeah, with no reference to whether any of it has the slightest grain of truth in it.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think we'll leave this particular video here, and I'd like to go into each of those golden nuggets in more detail in further videos. Is that okay, Anne-Marie?
Sure. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.